And we're good. Hello, people. My name is Bryce Tubbs. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. So today with me is Drew Epperson. He is a health, wellness, and financial freedom coach. He is an extremely proficient coach and has amassed a strong group of teammates and clients. Thank you so much for joining me today, Drew.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Bryce. I appreciate it.
Is there anything else you'd like me to add? Maybe I missed in my introduction of you?
No, that sounds pretty accurate so far.
He has a really great, work ethic and really great strategies that I'm sure everybody watching this video is going to get tremendous value out of. I know I'm going to be taking a lot of notes. Okay. So, the first question, what was life like before you got into coaching?
So I was actually born and raised in the nonprofit world. It was something that I just was baptized into, had no choice. So after kind of watching my dad kind of soar into that space, it seemed to be kind of a natural thing for me to kind of follow in his footsteps. So I started creating a couple of different nonprofit groups, and through a course of that, decided to move to Chicago. Well, I was born and raised in Chicago, went to Cincinnati, started my first nonprofit, moved back to Chicago, started my second one, moved down to Nashville, which is where I'm currently located, to start my third nonprofit. And through that course of action, was working long days, was working tireless nights. The clock never ends when you're an entrepreneur, when you're working in that nonprofit space. And so through that series of how I chose to live during that time frame, I was waking up at 3 a.m, coming home, working on the nonprofit in the afternoon, barely seeing my kids who at the time were really small. And so through that course and through that series of life decisions that I was making, began to put on weight, low energy, stress levels through the roof, feeling like my time wasn't my own, feeling like I was at the whims of life, feeling like I was out of control and at the whims of everybody else, and not really creating the life I wanted to create at that point. And so my wife was actually the first one. She ended up seeing a longtime friend who had lost some weight, and through her series of events, she began to lose some weight, and I began to see some major transformation take place. And so I joined in, and my desire was to be able to create memories with my kids, because at the time, being overweight, not seeing them, I wanted them to be able to create memories with their kids. And at the time, I was manipulating my kids to come inside. I was out of shape. I was heavy breathing, sweating profusely, 1 minute into any physical kind of activity. And so I found myself manipulating them to come inside to watch movies and have snacks and that sort of stuff. And I finally woke up one day, Bryce, and I said to myself, why will my kids have the kind of memories that I'm making with them now? And do I want them to have those memories? You see, I wanted to have active memories. I wanted my kids to remember dad getting outside and throwing the ball. And so I finally woke up one day and said, I need to do something different with my life. And so through the course of dropping 30 pounds in less than 5 weeks, all without working out by one day, by the way, I began to get my nutrition, my habits in order. And through that process, like the brain fog started to lift. I don't know if you know what the brain fog is, but it's like you start making mountains out of molehills. Every decision seems to be this major one. And so that started to lift, and I started to engage differently with my family. I started showing up bigger in my marriage. I started showing up bigger in all the areas that I kept claiming were mattering most to me. And so just like any good book or any good movie you watch or you read, you start naturally telling people about that. And so I started talking to people about what it is I was going through. People were recognizing inside of me, holy cow, Drew, something is different about you. And so that naturally started to lead me into introducing to them what it is I was doing. I had no intentions at the time leaving what I was doing, but then I started to go, but hold on, if people are asking me, people are coming to me, and I'm just naturally talking about it, why wouldn't I look into something different? And so my wife became a coach at that time, and for about 6 months to a year, she started to build this at-home business. And so little by little, she started bringing a few $100, and within about 2 to 3 months, her check started beating up my check. And I started to go, and hold on, what is happening? Because you are not working the same amount of hours I am, and you're making just as much as I am. And so it got to a point where that nonprofit was we finally sat down and began to look at everything. and realized that this wasn't what we were meant or supposed to do at this time. So she looked at me, she goes, well, what do we do? I said, well, what if I came on with you and we kind of poured all of our time and attention into this just to kind of see where it went. And within a few months, things just started to absolutely take off. We now are coaching thousands of people all across the country. We have pushed into Singapore and Hong Kong, and we are so excited about the future of where we're going that 5 years later now, not only is my health still on point, I'm achieving things. I'm getting ready to do an Ironman here soon. Never would have imagined or dreamed that in the years, 5 years ago. And yet here we are, and life looks absolutely different. And that is how we kind of got into the space that we are in today.
You know, that's a really great transformation story. You know, that's one thing that I really like when I talk to you is just the way that you're able to talk about your actual, you know, transformation. A lot of people have a transformation, but they can't express it in a way that actually, you know, actually makes me feel a certain way, right?
Yeah, sure.
So, you know, one thing that I really like about you and that I noticed, you know, when we were speaking before and in times past is that your energy, you know, so you're managing a lot of people, right? What are some things that you're doing to consistently bring your energy up and maintain it?
Yeah, all right. So naturally, I just have a lot of energy. I've always been like this as a kid. I just carry this thing with me. And really, a lot of it is rooted in a belief in what it is that I'm doing. Whatever it is that I'm doing, I have this strong conviction that I'm if I'm not doing this, why am I? Like what is the point? If I am supposed to be giving, see, I look at my energies as this kind of, I don't know, sacred's the right word, but I have very limited energies that I give away. And I begin to think of it in terms of who deserves that energy that I have. And I always start obviously with my family, my kids, my wife, and then I look to those people who are looking to make the transformation process or at least start the transformation process. And so I look at that energy expenditure and I ask myself, how can I give the best parts of me away? And so this energy that I have always starts in the belief that if I am going to put myself into something, it's going to get every bit of me. And so anytime I talk to people about what it is that I do and how it is I got there, one thing they always say to me is, man, you seem very passionate about that. And I go, what? Is there any other way to live? Should there be any other way to live? If you are giving your whole self to that, then there has to start with this belief, this conviction that what it is you're giving your energy to has got to be worth every amount of that.
So then the follow-up, the adverse that is, so then what do you like for the other tasks that are not deemed, you know, to deserve that huge energy output? Are you like on standby and kind of reserved?
Right. Yeah. So all of it just depends. So what I try to do is I try to go, if this is going to require something from me that I'm not energized about, I have to ask myself, does it need to be done at all? And if it does need to be done, then where does it rank in a priorities of importance of where it goes to advance kind of my day, the moment, my overall goals, my objectives, my values? Everything's driven out of values. And so if it doesn't fall in line with that, then honestly, I've gotten to a point in my life and my age, the experience that I've been, the starting of the businesses that I've done, that I just look and go, it's not worth putting any time and energy to. And so naturally, it just begins to get cut off and I just don't engage or participate with it much anymore.
Mm-hmm. So you have a lot of different business priorities, a lot of things pulling at you. What does, you know, an average day look like for you, an average business day for you?
Yeah, so I wake up in the morning and I realized this probably about a year ago that there's not much in my life that I can control. And so I asked myself, what can I control? And I find out that I can control my mornings and I can control my evenings. And everything that happens in between is out of my control. Life throws me curveballs, challenges and situations, things that I wasn't anticipating or expecting. So I plan my day, but many times that stuff can get thrown off due to situations out of my control. So my typical workday always starts with an early morning alarm clock that goes off around 5 in the morning. I get up and I'll either do a couple of things. I'll get the blood pumping. I'll go for a brisk walk in the morning come home, I'm reading a minimum of 10 pages every single day in a book, writing down thoughts, writing down ideas. I'm getting my creative juices flowing. I'm looking at my calendar for the day. I'm stretching, I'm breathing exercises. I'm just getting my reticular activating system in the back of my head primed for going out and creating the best scenarios of whatever curveballs are going to come my way. Because again, I cannot control what comes my way, but I can control how I react and respond to each one of those situations that do come. So the best, if I can get myself primed in a way to best respond to those situations and not react to them, then I can find myself winning. And I do the same thing at night. So I'll go through my day, I'll do my things, I'll have my moments and my calendar appointments that I've got set. But then in the evening, after I've kind of got the kids to bed, I'll either sometimes put on a 15, 20-minute show, then turn that thing off. I'll do some reading. I'll do some decompressing. I'll think about what my day looks like tomorrow. I have in my calendar every single day a gratefulness exercise. So I'll sit there and think about all the things that I'm grateful for that I experienced today. And then again, I'm kind of winding that down, shutting down myself, my brain, and everything, and allowing it to start to give me the best night's sleep that I possibly can so that I can wake up the next day and do it all over again.
Okay. So, can I ask you, just kind of switching lanes, is, what problems do people try and solve when they work with you?
It's interesting because a lot of my clients will come to me saying, I want to solve the problem of weight. But what I find is that's where it starts, but that's not where that is not necessarily the root. That is not the problem of the problem that they're trying to solve. What I have learned over probably the 5 years of doing this is that the main problem people are trying to solve has been this, and this is just my opinion, something that I've seen in my business, is they're trying to solve the problem of learning to trust themselves again. That is the major thing. Drew, I've tried every diet. Drew, my husband or my wife or my partner or my spouse, they won't let me spend that money again because they've seen me do 1,000,000 of these things and they've seen me fail 100,000 different times. And so really what I hear over and over again is, Drew, I just want to figure out, how can I trust myself again? How can I know that when I go to that party, that when I start this transformation process, that I'm actually going to follow through with it? How will I know that this thing will yield me results? And my answer is always, there are no guarantees in life. But what we can do is take one step at a time, one decision at a time. And over time, we can begin to build that trust back with yourself and with those who matter most to you. And we can start to create the kind of life you're looking to create.
And this is not just, food related. This is like everything. So their business, their job, their relationships too, right? Trust themselves in that.
Exactly, because it's the old saying that how you do anything is how you do everything. And so I hear, again, a lot of people going, Drew, I've got my work schedule down. I've got my relationship thing down. It's like this one area, my health, that I just can't seem to get nailed down and figured out. And as you begin to uncover and ask more questions, you actually begin to see that all those areas they thought they had nailed down, there are still a lot of the same thread kind of weaving itself through each one of their relationships, their kids, their partners, their job. All this stuff seems to have this similar thread that weaves its way in and out of everything, because at the end of the day, how you do anything is truly how you do everything.
Yeah. So that's actually is a very interesting point, because everybody's like, I have this one area, and then it's like, yeah, then you pull back the covers and it's like, well, remember when we had this one area? Oh my goodness, that's actually very, very profound. Let me ask you this. So then, if they can't trust themselves to make certain decisions, how do you help them, trust you enough, or what is the thing that caused them to sign up and work with you if they can't trust themselves?
Good question. And a lot of it is I spend a majority of my time uncovering their why they say something is important to them. And so one of the things, because your business is built at the speed of trust, right? And how that begins to be built is through listening and showing care through listening and asking the questions that are tailor-made for each one of those individuals. And so I've gotten really good because my formal training always taught me to have the answers, always taught me to tell people what to do, how to do it, when to do it, where now my training has taught me to go, hold on, every person is unique. Listen for those things. Listen for the, because here's what I know about humans. There are things, because we are biped hominids, right, where we are all kind of the same because we're just humans, but then it fractals off into all sorts of different unique things that make us who we are. And so we have this 30,000 foot making us all humans, but then as you begin to listen and ask more questions about that, you begin to go, oh, interesting, tell me more about that. And that is a question I ask all the time is, Drew, I want to get healthy. Fascinating. Tell me more about that. Or I'll ask the question, and why is that important to you? And those two questions I have found have really helped build the trust between me, because I work with a lot of clients that I have never met before in my entire life. So you're right, there has to be, when you talk about the most intimate, one of the most intimate things, somebody's weight and how they feel about themselves, you got to learn how to deal with somebody on that level, especially when you're starting at this, I've never met you, nice to meet you. Now let's talk about something that is deeply impacting to you, and that's your weight. Because a lot of people wrap up their identity inside of this. And so now you start to get into that conversation of identity and how you begin to help somebody uncover. But I'm not a counselor, I'm not a therapist. All I do is ask questions and allow somebody to work on it at the pace that they want to work on. And that's how we begin to build that trust.
Okay. Well, that was a lot in there. Hopefully people watching this actually took notes on that. If not, you really just missed out a lot in your life. So who do you work with exactly?
So as far as demographic, who do I work with?
Or yeah, so do you work with like people who are already interested in health and wellness? Do you work with people who are super overweight? Do you work with regular people?
Yeah, gotcha. Good question. So I work with all sorts of different people. I work with young 20-somethings all the way up to people who are in their 80s and everything in between. I work with people who want to do weight management, whether that be to gain, maintain, lose weight. I work with people who want to create a residual-based income. We're looking to build an additional stream of income because we all know that our economy is not going to keep on going the rate that it's going, right? So what are those additional streams that you're creating and building to help solidify and fortify your financial future that you're trying to create? I also work with people who are looking to get out of their jobs and wanting to make this a full-time income. So I'm looking for people and working with people of all sorts of backgrounds, people who don't want to do this at all, but are simply wanting to make lifestyle changes and everything in between those two extremes.
So, kind of moving down that vein of diversification, is that kind of why you started going into like, the different places like Hong Kong and Singapore?
Yeah, so that is actually because if you to add the United States, Hong Kong, and Singapore, you're actually reaching 54% of the world at that point, just between those three places. If you add up the populations between those three, you begin to tip the scales of reaching a majority of the world. And naturally, we're going to keep on creating and pushing into other parts. But as we begin to push out, we're starting to see that it's not just America who is extremely overweight, obese, and not just obese, but unhealthy mind, because we're about three things in our business: healthy body, healthy mind, healthy finances. And those three things, when you begin to interwork and intertwine those three things, you begin to realize, oh, this is an American problem. This is a world problem. And so the more that we can continue to push into other parts of the world, the more we can help bring a solution to help people work through those three particular situations.
So something that's just kind of coming up on my mind, I'm sure it's a minor thing. How do you communicate with people in Hong Kong and Singapore? Do they speak English, or do you use translating apps, or?
Yeah, so I do both actually. A lot of them speak English. So we've had not a lot of issues with that. But for those who don't speak English, we do translation apps and able to use that to help us kind of break down that communication barrier.
So now kind of taking a little step back, for diversification, do you like diversification outside of the business, or do you like a lot of diversification inside of your business?
So as far as different streams of income, is that what you mean by
Correct.
diversification?
Correct.
So I go outside of my business as well. So, we're into real estate, stocks and trading. We're into our health and wellness business. We're looking into separate coaching into different areas other than health and wellness of body and mind.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at all sorts of different opportunities. And a lot of those things are just now starting to formulate and kind of come together. My wife and I just heavily invested into our own, into another coach who is coming into our life and helping us figure out, how do we think bigger? How do we create and push even further? And so 2020 is going to be off of the charts when it comes to helping a max amount of people grow and evolve in their own personal lives so that they can go and create the dreams that they've always desired in their own life.
So can I ask you this question, on that thinking bigger? So a lot of people talk about, you have to think big. How important is it first to get those skills to be able to, make it in the small and then start thinking bigger?
It all has to start with a craft that you have spent the 10,000 hours on. And there's this old saying of putting in the 10,000 hours, which just means, what is that one thing or that meat and potatoes that is going to be the driving force behind you allowing the diversification to take place? Because when you begin to celebrate your successes too early, or when you begin to get to push into other things too soon, everything begins to collapse. Mm-hmm. But the moment you get that one major thing, that one thing that you have poured the 10,000 hours in, that you become the expert in, quote unquote, then that begins to allow you as the entrepreneur to be able to look into how else and where else can I begin to help other people thrive and succeed in. But that really has been a key, at least for my wife and I, is pouring into that one thing. How do I become the best at this? Then that begins to generate the income. That generates the experience for us to pull from and use for in the future.
So interesting tip, even further down that line. So what happens if, for example, some of our viewers might be accountants. They've mastered accounting, like either for a big corporation or for themselves, but they have not really mastered how to get clients, how to actually start a business for themselves. Do they basically have to restart that 10,000 hour clock?
I don't think so. No, I think the greatest teacher in life is life itself, experience. You can pull from the reality of what others, first of all, others who have gone before you, what they have done. Number two, the experiences that you have pulled from. You have been brought in, you have been hired by somebody else. There was a process you went through. There was an experience you went through. What did you like about that? What didn't you like about that? How can you take the experiences you already have and how can you begin to extract information from that for you to be able to push into that next level and to be able to create that next thing if that is something you desire to do?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So let me ask you this, actually, I was going to ask, what's your vision for your business, but this actually might be even more down the line. So what are some ways that you're thinking bigger now?
Yeah. So right now, it's how do we begin to double? My biggest vision for 2020 is taking what my yearly income was for 2019 and how do I make that my monthly income? That has been a major goal of my wife and I. Another major goal that I have that it doesn't sound like it's part of my business, but it really is how do my wife and I begin to create a family structure that allows my kids to feel like they are a part of and in conjunction with what it is we're doing. And a lot of people go, well, that doesn't sound like it's part of business. Yeah, but once you figure out and you have a home life that your kids are wanting to be a part of, that frees you up to be able to pour more energy and not just feel like they're this side addition, but how do I pull them into, not so that they can necessarily take over the business one day, and if they do, great, but rather how do I give them the tools to think critically, be curious, take risks, and be able to create a life and a future that they want to create and not be at the whims or at the mercy of somebody else.
Yeah.
And those are the kinds of things we want to build inside of our family so that we can hopefully pass on this success and not go, hey, here's a lot of money, kids. You never have to work another day in your life. That doesn't do them any good. But if I can teach them how to create and build whatever it is they want, then they can go and sky's the limit at that point.
Mm-hmm. So now I'm just kind of thinking along the lines of, so, right, you've been spending 5 years doing things. What was the catalyst for you to want to start? What was that change that said, okay, 2019 I made this amount of money, let's make this my monthly income next? What changed between 2019 till now?
We moved from this being a hobby to this being a passion, something we obsessed over. And when I say obsessed, I'm referring more to the pride and ownership of something that when I'm involved in it, it's going to have my fingerprints and going, Drew Epperson was a part of this. Drew and Jana Epperson were a part of this. We know it's going to be good. And so when we moved from hobby to obsession, that was a huge turning point. But even if you were to go back even further, it was the decision. See, a lot of my clients, they tell me, Drew, what's the hardest part for your clients? Where do you see the hardest part for them? And I always tell them, it's not in the losing of the weight or the gaining or the maintaining or whatever part of the system of our program they're looking to utilize. That's not the hard part. The hard part was saying, I'm ready, let's go. That was it, because I have a lot of people kind of waffle. People are like, I'm not quite sure. I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready to make this step. I don't know if I can trust myself yet. And then finally, I'll get random texts, random phone calls. I'm ready.
Yeah.
That right there is the catalyst for any transformation. When the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain to change, that's when true transformation starts to take place.
Mm-hmm.
When the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain to change. So either way, you're going to experience pain in your life. It's just, how much coping have you been doing? How much coping have you deadened your senses to because of the pain and the frustration and all the things that kind of come with that? But then when you open yourself up to experience and feel that, you see, there's no transformation without pain. Pain is the catalyst for all of this. And so that's kind of where all of that was. And when you start to make pretty decent money, finances don't become a pain point anymore. Mm-hmm. So you have to keep on digging deeper to find out, what are those pain points in my life that make me want to continue to transform, to keep putting in the 10,000 hours, to keep grinding, to keep making the same decisions, to put the process in place to follow, to know that if I just follow this process, it will yield me the results that I'm looking for over time. If I don't quit and give up. I've seen a lot of people quit. I've seen very few people fail in our industry, but I have seen a lot of people quit. And there is a major difference between the two.
What is the difference between the two?
The failure is when you keep trying and it never yields you the results. Quitting is that I don't think you get to a point in your life where you keep giving and you keep giving, and right as you're on the brink of that breakthrough of momentum taking over, you throw your hands up in the air and you begin to justify, or you begin to rationalize away in your head, well, I wasn't meant to do this. Or, the universe is against me. The cards are stacked against me. Maybe this is just my lot in life. And now you start to talk about fixed mindset versus growth mindset, which is where I was. I began to break free of my fixed mindset. And then that began to allow me to see, no, there are no failures. There are absolutely no failures, but there are a lot of quitters in this world. And so I have this passion for being a quitter. And that's when I have to start to look and go, okay, at what point though do you keep pushing forward and step back and go, maybe I need to take a break, reassess some things, and figure out maybe I've ran my course in certain things and maybe I haven't. And those are two very different paths to take.
Mm-hmm. So you are a big proponent of people taking a break if they have to and then coming back in.
Yeah, when I say break, again, got to think of this in terms of momentum, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference between taking a break and doing nothing and taking a break and going, how do I keep a semblance of momentum going here, right? How do I stay engaged? We call it touching our business every single day. How do I get people to touch their business every single day, to engage at some sort of level, whatever level that might be, to keep that dream alive? And then I'm always thinking, okay, this getting me closer to the goals and dreams that I have laid out that I want to accomplish in my life? And if it does, then I want to make sure that I'm engaging with it all the time at some level to some degree.
So, oh yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Following that kind of fail versus quit. So as a business owner, is your job to try and speed up people's processes of, their current situation, that point where the current situation is way worse than than the pain of changing? Or is your job just to get as many people as possible to know about you so that when the time does come, they come to you?
My job is to live a life that's attractional, and that when people are ready and want to know more about what that attractional life is about, they reach out to me and we have a conversation. For those who have reached out and those who are are a part of our team, man, we got people who ebb and flow in and out, not doing it, doing it. My job is never to convince or to prove. The moment I move into convincing you need to do something or proving that you need to do something and why that's important, now you have taken the desire and you've taken the mojo, the juice that infuses into every single person, and you've sterilized it. And so my job is not to get anybody to do anything. My job is to just ask questions and find out if right now this is a pain point enough for you to do something about it. And if it's not, no guilt, no shame. I will be here when you are ready to kick into full gear, half gear, quarter gear, whatever that is for you. But I am not going to prove or convince or do any of that.
So, okay. That just following that line. So, what do you see a difference between convincing and objection handling on a consultation call?
The difference between those is that I ask it in forms of questions, but not in questions of like, do you really want to stay fat your whole life? Like that's not cool. That's not the kind of questions we ask.
Yeah.
The questions the objections are less about objections, and it's more about asking it from a different angle. That is the whole thing. Is I've got angles of a hat that maybe people haven't seen from. And so my point is simply to go, hey, did you know there was another angle to look at this from? Would you like to know another angle? And if they say yes, I just ask for permission. So permission isn't objectification. Permission is you then get permission for them to speak in certain ways. And so in my business, I'm constantly asking for permission to speak into people's lives, to position it a different way, to ask a different kind of question. And sometimes just by reframing something and having that permission to reframe it, many times can ignite the light bulb for them to go, that helped change everything for me. Fair.
That's actually interesting because like what I've noticed from people who are, coaches who are successful versus coaches who aren't, it's the coaches who aren't successful are constantly trying to tell people stuff without actually having the person either ask for advice or the person's not really in a state of mind to actually take the advice. Do you agree with that or no?
Yeah, a lot of times, and that honestly, that was me beginning in my career. I was answering a bunch of questions nobody was asking. Number two, I was projecting my experience onto other people. And when I started to make that shift from a telling coach, a projecting coach, into a questions coach, it diversified me. It allowed me to be this neutral bystander, the observer, looking in and peering in on a situation, asking very pointed questions or observations, asking permission to speak, those kinds of things, which then allowed the person to receive it in the best sorts of ways. And positioning somebody to receive information, or positioning somebody in a way to look at something from a different angle, makes it more about them. Because when you're in that proving, you're making it about you. You're making it about your experience. You're making it about your perception. You're making it about everything about me. But when you become this question, you make it about that person. You make it about them. You're helping them live the kind of life that they want to live versus life you think they should be living.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. So, wow, that's really powerful, you know. Because it's like one thing to really know this, but it's another thing when you actually hear it explained again, you know, just kind of confirming what I do already, and just seeing how, oh, here's another thing that we talked about before, which is kind of along the lines of that follow up. You know, what is, you don't really have to go in, you don't have to go into specific strategies that you use, but what are your views on follow up?
Yeah, fortune is in the follow up, isn't it? And then that what we're taught. Fortune is in the follow-up. So my whole strategy in follow-up is one word: relational. That's it. I build a relationship with every single person that I have a conversation with. That's it. I'm not here and the point of the relationship is to simply be that bridge if/when they need that particular result in their life or that particular solution. And if they don't, at least they have a random dude in Nashville sending lots of love and light their way. I have lots of people who I have been in relationship with for the last 4+ years. And I will hear, I just got cancer. I heard I was just contracted with cancer. My spouse or my partner just left me after X amount of years. I just lost my job. When the pain of life hits, I can step in and go, dude, listen, I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm not here to prove to you anything. I'm just here to let you know that in the darkest moments of your life, you got somebody in Nashville who is here sending lots of love and light your way. And whatever you want that to be, man, you got that from me today. And that's it. And I've got more people and did those guys, do they ever turn into clients? I don't know. That's not the point. That's not the point. The point is just for me to be a good human being and to know that when you put good out into the world, it increases your bandwidth to receive more good in the world from the world as well.
Wow, that's interesting. Because I mean, there's so many views out there about, you know, like whether you should there's a lot of people right now teaching, you know, don't talk to people in messages unless they're trying to buy from you. If someone doesn't buy in a consultation call, just ignore them. That, you know, it's really interesting to kind of hear just opposite. Like, for example, for me, right, in marketing, a lot of people say, you know, don't give away a lot of free stuff if people ask, but they don't buy from you. And I'm like, it's always on that kind of edge for me, you know?
Yeah, I get that. And, you know, I hear that too. Honestly, I hear that all the time. But again, if you look at the different kinds of businesses, and this may be true for other ones, I'm not in marketing, I'm not in these other businesses, but when I look at my particular business, I'm dealing with vulnerability. I'm dealing with somebody's very secretive number on a scale. I'm dealing with people's identity. And when you hold that identity very loosely, and in the sense that I'm entering into this relationship with no particular agenda or outcome expectations, right? I'm simply entering into this with just, hey, listen, man, I get that life can be difficult. got it that our identities many times are fragile at best. You got somebody here who's willing to walk down that road with you whenever you're ready. And if you never do, no worries. I'll just send you a text letting you know I'm thinking about you today, and I hope you have a good weekend.
Yeah. You know, I like that approach a lot, you know, which is actually really great. So, okay. So what are some systems that you use to manage? I'm sure you have like that, like for me, right? I get like 70 messages a day in my LinkedIn inbox.
Yeah.
What are you using to manage all those different conversations?
You know, it's right now, it's good old just keeping on top of things.
Uh,
I've actually looked into Scipio is the name of this texting campaign. I'm noticing that, you know, social media has got a gag on a lot of viewing when it comes to who views on
oh,
when. So that could be a whole nother topic of conversation. But just in the last year, I have felt like Facebook and even particularly Facebook and Instagram have put a gag on my particular page. I know other people have experienced that as well, but I'll speak from my experience. And so, how I begin to stay in contact with people has got to be very relational in that aspect, right? And so, the way that I do that is Messenger, LinkedIn Messenger, Scipio, using texting campaigns, trying to do video, you know, messages, audio, voice, texts. Anytime that I can send my voice and anytime I can send a video, I try to do that just so they get the full expression of what it is that I'm trying to communicate versus just reading words in a text.
mhm. That's really interesting. You know, because the way that you and I are approaching that to be able to, you know, get friends, it's more of a long-term plan because it's not about what I'm selling today, because you know I'm making new products, new services every single day. So then it's like you're just a different part of your journey. Today, help with virtual assistants. Tomorrow it's gonna be, you know, interviews like this. Another day it's gonna be, yeah. So
For sure.
that's I like that, you know.
For sure.
That's cool. You know. So let me ask you this: at what point in your career did you make that switch from, you know, short term, I got to get clients now, till, or were you always like that? You know, maybe you were.
No, I have felt that stress,
Mm-hmm.
that tension, that pressure um, was there from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
But at the beginning, social media was in a place where you could post a before and after picture, a transformation story, and you'd get people knocking down your door.
Yeah.
Hey, tell me more. What's going on? Whereas in the last year or so, because of the way social media has changed the game and they're changing interaction and the way people communicate and interact and viewing and limitations and all of that, it's really starting to change the way that we approach how we begin to communicate and kind of even particularly maybe I'm in the process right now figuring out what is that next thing, you know. I know that LinkedIn is a major thing. I know TikTok is becoming a huge thing, but how do I continue to just live my life out there in that attractional sense? So yeah, it's pretty interesting, kind of the pivotal moment that I think social media is kind of going through at this moment, and
Mhm.
whether that's because of the breaching of security that they've
Yeah.
all kind of gone through over the last couple of years. I'm assuming that's probably a big part of it. I'm not a social media guru. I don't study this stuff. I'm just kind of putting pieces
Uh,
together and assuming some things.
yeah. It's if you have a very strong organic method of being able to, you know, just like you're saying, live your life and have it be attractional. There are some cool things you can do. I mean, like you can just get engagement ads just to get people just to see that and be sucked into your funnel there. Take them to text or take them to email. What I wouldn't go email, to be completely
Right.
honest. But
Right. I don't
you
use.
know,
I don't even think I use email.
uh,
Maybe a couple times a year I do that, which is to me pointless. But
it's weird. If you're cold emailing, it's one thing. But for me, for example, right, whenever I send an email, it's generally like, you know, 50-60% open rate, because my people know I'm sending
wow.
something for a reason, you know. So
Yeah.
like once they're already inside that fold, then it's a different story. But to get new people inside the fold, you know, it's very cool, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's it's an interesting, it's turning people into raving fans. And
Yeah.
when you've turned them into raving fans, you can put them into any sort of category and they're going to consume your content in whatever format that you provide for them. But really what we're talking about is how do you begin to find new fans? And
Mm.
how do you begin to, and that's where you got to really start to work the referrals. You got to start working the word of mouth. You got to start getting ways for your people to help spread the word
Mm.
to other people saying, hey, you want in on this. You want to come be a part of this thing over here.
Mm.
And that's really, I think, the key. And where I think we're actually starting to kind of come back to
Mm.
is how do we make this more intimate and personal as opposed to a bot who could be potentially talking to me over Messenger. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah. Which is very, very interesting how you can go about doing that, you know? But that's cool that you're able to like manage that, you know, well, because you're not trying to manage it, right? So because you're just talking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the key. And when you start to figure out the flow of how conversations go, you can start to actually make them pretty succinct and to the point. The real challenge for me at the beginning was how do I keep this from becoming this long, engaging conversation that doesn't do anything, that
Yeah.
just talks about random stuff that doesn't help anybody at this point. But how do I make this conversation have a point? And how do I make this thing succinct and not drone on and carry on to where it feels like a big giant waste of time?
Yeah. Okay. That's very,
Because your business is like two sides of one coin. You have one side of the coin, which is the relational side, which is what we're talking about. But on the flip side of that same coin is you're running a business. And so your time is money. Your money is time. And so all these things you got to realize and understand that, I've got so much energy, so many things I can do during the day, so many resources that I can put into, virtual assistants and that kind of thing. I only have so much time and money to do
mm,
that with. So what are those things that give me the most bang for my buck? And then when that starts to run the course, what are those things that are right around the corner to look to start to maximize in that way as well?
okay. Yeah. That's kind of why I was asking that original question about how do you manage those without it going to nowhere. Yeah.
No, I get it. And that's when you've got to continuously refine and hone in. That's the 10,000 hours piece that I've been working on.
Mhm.
I've got a pretty good, I just know how flows of conversations go. I can tell in one response back if this is going to be something that, hey, listen, man, this isn't something at the time. So I just know to revisit. Maybe at a later point, I've got a system I follow that I put categories and, stay in relationship in the friend zone and people who are more interested in those who aren't at all, that kind of stuff.
Uh, yeah. Just kind of writing that last piece down. It's interesting. Interesting. Yeah, because a lot of people now that the social media game has kind of changed, a lot of people are struggling with direct outreach because generally, like people either give that super long thing where it's like, here's my email, here's my phone number, here's my, why don't we schedule a consultation? Or they go like something short that's, hey, I sell this thing. Do you want to buy it?
Yep.
But everybody's
And depending on what platform you're using, LinkedIn, you're expecting, to be sold to or to be able to hop on a call and somebody share what it is they're doing. So you have that built-in expectation
Mhm.
that when somebody does that, either this is, I know I'm going to be talking to somebody who's trying to do that. And if I want to do it, great. If I don't, then I don't. But when you go over to Instagram and Facebook, it's more of a, hey, bud, how's it going?
Mhm.
How's life with you? It's more of that relational next door neighbor versus LinkedIn has more of this business interaction with it. And so you've got a short punch with the LinkedIn, but then you got the long play that you're developing that relationship with on those other two platforms over there. And so again, depending on what it is you're trying to accomplish and how quickly you're trying to accomplish something, and what expectations are you dealing with those people who are utilizing those particular platforms.
Uh-huh.
That all begins to inform how you begin to interact, start, develop, and create relationships.
That's interesting. Because you know what I've noticed over working with different types of coaches. It's like a weird thing of when to go direct versus when to go indirect and be more relationship. Because now, not even on LinkedIn, I get coaches. They're like, my connection. I don't even send a connection message. Hey, don't pitch me. I'm like, I haven't even sent you a message, man. So it's like, it's a weird space that we're kind of coming into.
Yeah.
Direct versus indirect. But once people start, well, it's a very exciting time because people like you and like me who can actually do that, we're getting a pretty good boost. Everybody else is going to kind of quit,
Yeah. Well, and if you're willing to stay in the game and willing to see the trends and learn and grow and morph and adapt, as all entrepreneurs in this space are, you will begin to see and create and hear about the best ways to utilize this, and it's going to find its new normal. And that's where I think, because I feel like we're starting into this transitionary approach of how social media is used right now. It's just, can you be patient long enough to see how this is going to play out? And are you adaptable enough to be able to learn what these strategies will yield from this patience of how this is going to best be used over time? And so I think that's just a patience game and going, hey, I'm in this thing for the long haul.
What does the long haul mean to you? Is it measured in terms?
Long haul to me is less about a number and it's more about a mindset. And that mindset is just there when you have a particular time frame in mind. And again, I don't want to speak, I'm going to speak in generalities as opposed to, obviously there's lots of different scenarios and situations that can fit inside of here. Yeah. But long haul to me is just going, this is part of who I am. So whether I do this or whether I do something else, the long haul is about how can I stay a consistent learner? How can I continue to remain open to the ebbs and flows of technology, platforms, systems, processes, and how can I adapt my adaptability to be able to become the best version of myself in whatever that new thing is yielding and asking from me? That is the mindset versus a check mark of 5 years, 10 years, 12 years, and it's more about that.
Okay, yeah, that's really what I was asking. I'm glad that you took it to that level. Because I get people all the time. They want to come into entrepreneurship or want to come into their business, and they don't really see the progress they want in the unrealistic time frame they set, and they get discouraged and they fall off. So how do you prime either a new client or actually, do you prime people before they start working with you to think more long-term, or is it once they start working with you, you talk about long-term thinking?
Yeah. So specifically in our space, I ask this question and it always kind of tells me where people are at. And I'm going to assume this person wants to lose weight. I'll say, what is your ultimate over the moon ecstatic number on a scale that you would like to see accomplished? And 9 out of 10 times I'll hear, well, I know I could never be, so if I could just get to blump number, then I would be happy with that. And then I push a little bit further and go, yep, got it, makes total sense. What if you knew you couldn't fail? And what if you knew beyond a shadow of a doubt you can snap your fingers and tomorrow you'd be at that just over the moon ecstatic? Then I get the real answer. And the priming, back to your question now, is once I get a client feeling really good, and once I get a client experiencing this, seeing how simple, seeing how easy it is, I'm not trying to convince them that they can do more or that they want more. I'm simply trying to get them over the decision mark. If I can get you to make a decision and get you over that hump, then get you feeling good within a short amount of time, you'll naturally begin to prime yourself as opposed to needing extrinsic priming. And so that's where the whys really come into play. Because I tell each one of my clients, I am not your accountability partner. Why you decided to do this and the goals that you are creating and setting for yourself, that's what you're accountable to. And that's where the self-priming really comes in, because if you can help somebody prime themselves, they don't need motivation from the outside. They won't need somebody to do a pep talk for them. They'll be able to stare themselves in the mirror. And I have each one of my clients write on a piece of paper their goals and their whys, tape it to their mirror, and every morning and every night, very first thing they do when they wake up, very last thing they do when they go to bed, they read those out loud to themselves, and they prime themselves, and they tell their reticular activating to go out and create those things today. And that is where, when you start to stack up the wins over time, self-priming takes over, and great, now you're off to the races, and you go do and create the world you want to create.
Can I ask you this question? So reticular activation, you've said that a couple times in this video. What is that, and how does that affect, people who are the people who you can't control? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. So your RAS, reticular activating system, is at the base of your brain. The whole point of the RAS is to confirm what it is you believe to be true about your world. So for instance, when I went, one of the very first car I can remember thinking of wanting as a 16-year-old was an Audi TT.
Yeah.
Now, before I saw the Audi TT, I had no clue what it was. I never saw any on the road. But the moment somebody introduced me, a good friend pulled up, drove up in it, I was like, holy cow, that is a smoking car right there. I literally left that driveway that day, and I counted 5 Audi TTs on the road that day. Now, prior to him driving up on that driveway, I had never seen one. Does that mean they didn't exist prior to me seeing it? No, of course. They were all over the road. My reticular activating system had been tripped, seeing that a desire had been connected to me wanting one of those. So now as I'm on the road, I spot them all over now. That's the reticular activation system. It has no value of right or wrong. All its job is to do is to go out there and find the things that you're looking for. So for instance, my mom, when I was growing up, I would complain, I would moan, I would tell her all the things that were wrong about a situation. And she looked at me and she goes, Drew, here's a life lesson. You'll always find what you're looking for. And so as I grew up, connecting the Audi TT, connecting the story of my mom, my reticular activating system goes out and finds and confirms whatever it is that I'm desiring most in my life. Many times it's due to unconscious things that that I'm desiring. I self-sabotage. I don't know if you know about self-sabotagers. Well, we don't necessarily consciously go out and self-sabotage. Our RAS goes out and does that for us. Why? Because we are expecting there to be failure in those particular. See, I told you every single time that I get to this point, I always self-sabotage. Well, of course, it's self-fulfilling prophecies. Your RAS will go out and create each one of those situations. So now why my morning time and my evening times are so important is that those processes that I go through, those affirmations that I read, those breathing exercises that I create, the reading throughout my day, all those things that I have, it goes out and it confirms and looks for all those ways for me to accomplish and succeed at that point. And so that is why the RAS, reticular activating system, is so vitally important, is that it goes out and it helps you accomplish those things. But how you begin to do that is by giving your RAS something to focus in on in order to go and find and create those solutions.
Okay. So kind of making that even kind of circling back to where we were talking about a little while ago. Your goals now, are they like specific numbers? Are they specific? I know you want to double your income, but are you thinking in terms of a number that you have on your sheet of paper, or is it like this action? If I do this action, this action, this action, this action.
Yeah. So it's yes, yes, and I do reverse engineering.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, sat down with my coach, and he goes, "Okay, let's talk 90 days out. Where do we want to be?" Well, we need to have this amount of clients. We need to have this amount of coaches. That's going to yield us this amount of money. That's going to yield this. Okay, great. What does that mean? Now let's take a step back. How do we get there? Okay, we define that. Well, then how do we get there? And so we reverse engineer it to where now I have my daily consistent actions that I'm consistently taking that over 90 days will all build up and yield me the results that I'm looking to accomplish. And so one of the basic things that I do is I've got this app called Streaks, Streaks. And it only allows you to put up to 12 things on there, but it helps you stay active and consistent daily with the things that you want to create over a long period of time. And so I pulled in some of our top leaders. We're now creating over 90 days. We've set up what we want to create. Now we know daily we have to do these things. And we know that when we string along enough of those streaks, consistency, it will yield us the momentum we're looking to start pulling us forward and creating those numbers that I ultimately want to create.
Okay. That's interesting. But the only reason you were able to know those numbers was because you put in those 10,000 hours, and because. Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
absolutely, man. You got to know your business,
Yeah.
right? You got to know how the business works. You got to know that there are seasons, and what are those seasons for your business? I know for my business, we're getting ready to head into I call it unicorn season, where people are just throwing credit cards at you. You know, I don't care. Here you go. Just sign me up. Well, that's not all year long. Well, I know that the unicorn experience has only been created because for the last 3 months,
Yeah.
I felt like I've been in dormancy, right? Like October, November, December, you're like, sweet Jesus, is anybody out there wanting to do anything right now? And so you keep grinding, you stay consistent, you trust the process and keep doing the daily actions that you know are going to yield you this next season that you're wanting to experience. And to the degree in which you experience that amazing season will all be contingent upon the degree in which you were consistent 3 months prior to that season.
Yeah. Okay, so that's very, very important. If you guys didn't pay attention, I would rewind that, because oftentimes if people are not experiencing the results they want, they stop. And then, their RAS is like, oh, nothing's happening, nothing's gonna happen. Now they're on that train to be able to. Let me ask you this. So is the way that they're able to reverse that by first writing down the goals, and then they're going to just be looking, and it's going to reprogram it fast, and they'll get out of that rut?
Yeah, so there's this thing called neuroplasticity, right? And all that just simply means is that you can rewire your brain. Your brain can think differently. It can go out and do hard things. And so one of the things that I would challenge people to do if they're trying to rewire, first of all, educate yourself, books, reading, surround yourself with people who are going to push you to do that. And then sit down and figure out what work is it going to take for me to do that. And then you got to set some goals. What are some of the goals I want to accomplish? What is it going to take for me to yield that? And then what are my daily action steps in order to accomplish that? But I'm telling people right now, that support system of fellow entrepreneurs, fellow coaches, whatever space fellow accountants, find those people, challenge each other, push each other to be better, and start to ask tough questions and get into those spaces of how do we, if this is something you desire to do, right? If that's something you want to do, this is one of the key things that I think is missing, is that community of people that you surround yourself with to become better.
Interesting. So for those watching, if you do not have a community that you're already in, I recommend you go join my group called Uncapped Growth Strategies. Inside is everything that either a coach or accountant or therapist will need to, move forward in their life, because just like he's talking about, we have a support group, of people who are going through the same challenges that you're going through, and it's going to allow you to be able to go. See, people inside of my group are automatically getting videos just like this on a consistent basis with people who are in a position in their life and their business as to where you would want to be. So, we have a link in the description below if you'd want to check that out. But, Drew, what are some upcoming projects that you have going on?
So projects that we're working on, my wife and I are actually starting our first podcast ever. We've heavily invested into this training that we're going through together. And so we're actually going to do a podcast of just basically documenting our journey through taking our yearly income and making that our monthly income. And so we're just going to walk people through the challenges we're facing. We're going to walk people through the experiences we've gone through, some of the processes with our family, what that is looking like, the highs and the lows. We're just going to basically document that. So we're really excited about what that's going to look like and how that's going to be. That's one of our major things. The other thing that we're doing is we are starting a group of cohorts of new clients who are wanting to come in, either new clients or coaches, and coaching them at a high level. And so there's a lot of stuff that's involved with how that goes, and that's going to be starting. In fact, they start periodically throughout the year. So if you're watching this at a later time and you're wondering, was it only for that moment? No, we have different times throughout the year that we are generating and getting that going. So depending on where it is that you're at, if that's something that interests you, who knows, reach out and connect with me, and we would love to be able to help out in any way we can.
Excellent. So, where can people go to find more about you?
So Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, search Drew Epperson, DREWEPPERSON. We've also got an email, Epperson Coaching, EPPERSON Coaching @gmail.com. You can follow us there. So yeah, those are some great pieces for you to be able to connect. You can DM me. You can just follow and check out some new things that we'll be doing that'll be coming out down the pike here in the next few months as well.
Okay, excellent. Thanks so much for, even coming on the show today. I really appreciate you, Drew.
Absolutely, Bryce. And I've loved being able to connect. I think the first conversation we had just a few months ago was awesome. Absolutely loved it. And I look forward to being able to contribute and learn in all sorts of different ways.
Excellent. I'm very glad. I think that, both of our target markets are pretty similar. So I'm sure that a lot of people in my audience are going to be able to really connect with you, and hopefully you're going to get some great benefit out of this, at least in the next years to come,
Absolutely, man.
Excellent. And to the viewers who are watching, thank you for making it to this point in the video. As we talked about earlier, I recommend you go check out the link in the description below to go join my group called Uncapped Growth Strategies. As the name suggests, we give you everything that you need to start moving forward in your life and your business, whether that's strategies, interviews just like this with people who are moving very fast in their business. I can't always guarantee it's going to be someone who is, going from a yearly income to a monthly income, but in the future, we're going to keep bringing on great interviews just like this. Also, hopefully you enjoyed watching this video as much as we enjoyed creating it. Feel free to hit that share button so other people can get some benefit as well. Have a great day and take it easy. Okay, we're done recording in 3, 2, 1.